Welcome to Island Living Today, a monthly speaker series where local experts share valuable insights to enhance your home ownership experience on Vancouver Island. This series is brought to you by top realtors on Vancouver Island. Connie Henschel, who brings 15 years of care and integrity to every client interaction, creating ideal matches between people and homes. Denise Hodgins, who specializes in the finest properties in the Mid-Island region, delivering exceptional service along the way. And Laura Healy, who's passionate about sharing her in-depth real estate knowledge and professional connections with her clients. Thank you for joining Island Living Today and being a part of our community.
Wasn't that lovely? That is our inaugural run of our video. I think it looks great. I'm really happy to introduce Shari Sanders today. Shari, welcome to Island Living. And Shari is joining us from FCT. I can't remember what FCT stands for, Shari. What does that stand for?
First Canadian Title.
Right. And she's here to talk about insurance, what title insurance is, and do you need it? Shari Sanders is the Business Development Manager at FCT, and she's responsible for residential and commercial solutions for a third of BC. That's huge. And her territory includes Vancouver Island, so we're very lucky. As an insurance professional, she cares deeply about the insured and the claims process and education. Her day-to-day role includes supporting law firms and notary offices, and helping them understand and ordering title insurance on behalf of real estate clients, and collaborating with the claims team. She's also passionate about sharing knowledge about fraud in real estate transactions and errors and omission insurance for legal professionals. Well, you're a busy lady. Shari, why don't we start by talking about what is title insurance? Who does it protect and what does it protect against?
Thank you so much for asking me to be here. I'm very excited. So I've got some information to share with you. I'm glad you mentioned Vancouver Island. I am thrilled that is my territory. It's where my family comes from. I'm there every month, and I know it's just beautiful there.
Yeah.
So before I start with what title insurance is, maybe I'll ask Crystal to show a short video we've prepared about just an overview, and then I can get into the details.
Title insurance from FCT. Why your lawyer recommends it and why you need it. Normally, when you buy something, you pay for it and take it with you. But real estate is a little different. When you buy a home, it stays put. You pay the cost and then get documentation to say the home is yours. That's what we call title. And that's why your lawyer chooses to partner with FCT to protect your title. Before you purchased your home, the property may have changed hands several times, potentially causing title and non-title related issues that could affect your home's title now and in the future. Your lawyer's role is to protect you and your interest in the property that you are purchasing, which is why they have partnered with FCT. FCT Title Insurance does not just protect your ownership to the property, it also covers many non-title and non-ownership issues, such as municipal issues, outstanding work orders, tax payments, encroachments, fraud, and forgery. Plus, FCT will defend your rights and will compensate you for any loss incurred to defend those rights, or to win back your title. When you purchase an FCT lender title insurance policy, your lender is protected should issues come up, but what about you? What about your investment? Without an FCT homeowner policy in place, you are not covered. Unlike other types of insurance, title insurance is available for a low one-time premium. Whether it's the lender policy or the homeowner policy, there are no renewals to worry about and no further premium payments. Even if you've owned your home for years, there is an FCT policy just right for you. The best part is your coverage is in place for as long as you or your heirs own the property. To learn how to protect your greatest asset with title insurance from FCT, contact your lawyer or visit fct.ca or
Thank you. That was a quick overview of title insurance. So I think really there are two policies. There's a lender policy and a homeowner policy. And today I'm going to focus on the homeowner policy. So I'll generally just start with the lender policy. Most people, when they're purchasing a home or a condo, will go to their bank or their credit union, their lender, and they'll get pre-approved for a mortgage. They go out with the realtors, they find the property that they love, and eventually they'll end up at a notary office or a local lawyer's office for the closing. For many people, that's when they learn for the first time that they have to pay for a lender policy. It's a condition of the loan that the bank or the credit union is giving them. To be transparent, the lender policy 100% protects the lender. But because it's a condition of the loan that's being given, the costs are passed on to the homeowner. Some, you may know better than I, some homeowners may be aware of it, some not. And that's probably all I'm going to say about the lender policy in British Columbia. It only occurs when there's a loan, when somebody has come in to get approved to purchase a home or a condo or land. The homeowner policy, on the other hand, is a little bit different. Again, clients have been out with their realtor, they've selected their property, they come to their lawyer's office. Many lawyers and notaries in British Columbia today automatically just add the homeowner policy because they understand the value. Some lawyers and notaries will discuss it with their clients to say, hey, this is what it is. And I would say in British Columbia, 90% of the homeowner policies we issue happen at the time of closing. There is space for people that already own a home. They may have owned it or inherited it. It could have been in the family for many years, and they don't know if there's a title insurance policy on the home. There is a path for those people to contact us or to go back to a lawyer or notary and get what we call an existing homeowner policy. So what I really like to do is just describe generally, you can all tell me when I've provided too much detail about what a homeowner policy does. And I might start with what it doesn't do. A title insurance policy protects an owner's title, their ownership of the property. Here are the most legal words I'm going to use. It protects property owners against a financial loss for issues around the property and their ownership, which we call title. So in our claims department, we might get claims for people who have moved into a new property, and the claim might be about the dishwasher doesn't work. And I'm not being fun or silly. We do get these claims. If something in the home mechanically isn't working, that doesn't affect someone's title. It doesn't cause them a loss of ownership. So those kind of things, hopefully home inspectors have been through, and that's just sort of not what a title insurance policy does. For homeowners in BC, I will talk about fraud, but I want to be transparent. We do have fraud in British Columbia, both on the lender side and the homeowner side. But by volume, I'm just going to walk through the most common claims that we have for homeowners.
Well, and Shari, we'll kind of go step by step through some of the questions. So
okay, great.
We're really kind of focused initially right off on kind of the summary of kind of what title insurance is. So catch me if I'm wrong, but we've touched on the two different types, the lender policy and the consumer policy. So is there like, what's the biggest difference between those two ones? Like just super simple is like you touched on, the lender policy only protects the lender, right? So if I have lender policy, I don't really have title insurance as me. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And then if I have policy that protects me and the lender, kind of what exactly in kind of a Coles Notes does it do? Like, I understand if I have a zero lot line, it should protect me potentially. Or if I learned today something new on your video about bylaws, city bylaws, taxes unpaid.
So a lender is going to, a lender is going to open a claim only if they suffer a loss.
And what
A
type of
home-
loss would that be?
There's been a failure to register the property on title. Someone goes to sell it, suddenly BMO, this is my example, it could be TD, isn't the, you know, the proper mortgagee of the property.
Oh, so if someone tries to sell something, and it's not the right lender.
Correct.
So, okay, okay. So someone tries to force the sale that's not a registered creditor on the property.
That's right. That would be a lender issue.
That makes sense because it protects the entity, which is the title, right?
Correct.
Ah,
They're in,
okay,
yeah,
yeah.
they're loan. For a homeowner, I would say, generally speaking, it's unknown issues. So
Okay,
someone
great.
moves
Tell
in,
me about those.
somebody moves into their home, and learns. Well, may I give you a true example? We had a client, couple purchased a home. A few months later, they went to the city to get a permit to expand their deck over the garage. And the city said, "What garage? You don't have a garage. We're coming to see you." And the city did. Previous owners had built something unpermitted, and the city made them tear it down. Title insurance, we paid for that. It was about $54,000 for them to hire somebody to come in and tear down unpermitted work that was unknown to the purchaser when they bought the property.
Oh, that's fascinating because in some municipalities you'll be grandfathered in, but you can't really touch the structure. Or if you just touch the structure, then you have to bring the structure to code. And it kind of involves kind of I would say, deassembling, assembling. So I've just completed a deal on a house and it actually registered today where a permit was left open but never closed. And so to close the permit, the client had to basically reopen the whole home and go in 5 series. Thank gosh it was the seller selling the home, and this was done pre us purchasing the home. But yeah, so because I always think of title insurance being something like pertaining to lot lines or pertaining to things encroaching, but I didn't know it could be something such as information. Because like when Connie, Denise, and myself do an offer, we frequently will have a municipality review. And so we'll speak in detail of, you know, what is involved in the property. We'll like, if something and we also have, and Denise can talk more about this, but we also have a form that we're required to fill out in Vancouver Island called a material latent defect form when something is built without permit.
Yes.
So, yeah. So
I'm dying to add to that conversation. Last year, we paid out a claim on Vancouver Island. I won't name which municipality it was. And I want to say the realtors did just that. And the law firm followed that documentation. Once the owner moved in, they discovered it wasn't so. And they went back to that municipality and said, "This is the report we were given." And the municipality said, "Oh, sorry, we've made a mistake."
Oh,
Covered by title insurance. It's unknown.
wow.
The purchaser didn't have any control over that. They didn't know.
Yeah, and I make it really, whenever possible, Denise and I both make a point of going there in person and looking at the correct address on file and verifying the photos, because you're absolutely right. Someone could technically make an make an error, a human error. We're all humans.
That's right.
So yeah, I really try to go in person, get the pictures printed out, and
Right.
I'll get the satellite pictures, I'll get the utility line pictures, and I always call it proof of work done. I've been to the municipality. Here's your satellite photo. These
Right.
are the notes they've given me, and they're handwritten often, and you know, because they won't print them out necessarily, just like you said. Yeah, so fascinating. But sometimes we'll struggle with getting information from a municipality due to privacy rules or other things. And so, yeah, it's that's super fascinating that title insurance covers that. I've learned something new today.
May I share with you what our top claims are in British Columbia for homeowners? So you've touched on it: encumbrances, liens, unpermitted work. So we have people that have, you know, purchased a property. I'm going to stick with homes for a moment, but I do want to come back to condos. Time can go by because in title insurance, it's one premium, you pay for it once and you have it as long as you own the property. And if you pass the property down to children, the policy remains. So years can go by. And a neighbor, this is unfortunately happens, gets a survey done in preparation for selling their property, and everyone discovers the fence is in the wrong place. And so our insureds, their fence may be a foot over. We had a claim, I think it was in Williams Lake, and the fence was in the wrong place, and it went for miles and miles and miles. That's unknown to the purchaser at the time of the purchase. And we paid to have that, fence moved. Not to get into the weeds a little bit, but we have something in the policy called duty to defend, and the video made reference to it. If the claim was on the other side and our insured owned their home and had their fence, and the neighbors said, oh, your fence is in our property. And we didn't believe that was true. FCT goes to work. We do surveys as well. And for any reason, our insured is being taken to court or sued over this fence line, we have a duty to defend, meaning we will pay the legal costs to defend our insured in court if we don't believe that's the case.
Okay, fascinating, really fascinating. Because in some areas, like for example, I live in the Old City Quarter in Nanaimo, and there are, the lot lines are very mysterious.
It's not just not Nanaimo, in Nanoose Bay.
Yeah.
I think people just put houses wherever they wanted to. They paid for some land and they're like, well, this is mine now. And then they stick up a house. Our neighbor's property, their driveway encroaches, like it actually goes onto our property. We had it surveyed after we purchased. And we did buy title insurance. However, the section of property that his driveway goes over, we really don't care. It doesn't affect us at all, but
Right.
it might have, Yeah, yeah.
So Denise, do you want to take back to the next question, kind of when is title insurance purchased?
Yeah, you kind of touched on that, Shari, but can you elaborate a little bit more about the actual process of when you purchase title insurance and how that all comes down?
Absolutely, Denise. I would think most people in British Columbia learn about title insurance at a closing when they're purchasing their property or their condo. But we do insure directly people that don't have title insurance that want it after they've purchased their property. So they can go back to their lawyer or notary. I think I might have provided your office earlier with a phone number. They can just call us. There's also on our website, which is fct.ca, they can click homeowner, and they can just put in their property address, what kind of a home it is, and we'll get back to them with a quote. The coverages are very similar, but the policy date starts when we issue the policy. So if somebody is doing a purchase through a law firm and they get their policy on the day of closing, that is the effective date. For existing homeowners that might have been in their home for 20 years, and they buy a property today, policy today, September 5th, we're not going to open a can of worms from 5 or 10 years ago. We we take care of the insured from the day the policy is issued.
So for example there, let's say I've lived in my house for 20 years. I've come to this realization that I should have title insurance for no particular reason. Just somebody says, hey, you should have this. And I'm like, you're absolutely right. I'm going to buy that. Then a few months later, I decide to renovate my house or build a garage or something. And I find out that the neighbor's fence is encroaching or there's something else that's wrong. Are you going to cover me immediately from the time that I've purchased? So
if it was unknown at the time that you purchased, generally, yes, we would.
Oh, okay. And how would you determine if it was unknown?
Well, sometimes those things are documented. You could say you didn't know, but yet,
right.
Not you, Denise, but you've gone to City Hall and applied for a permit and learned a few weeks ago and think, oh, maybe title insurance would help me here. But generally these things are documented when they arise, when a neighbor first emails you or something comes to light.
Right.
And can people make more than one title insurance claim in the?
Yeah, so that's a good question. What is the limit of a title insurance policy for a homeowner? Generally, it's generally 200%. And what I mean by that, just simply in terms, Denise, if your house, at the time we issue the policy, if your house is worth $500,000, you have double of that worth of coverage. So for as long as you own the policy, you will have $1 million worth of coverage. If somebody buys a property that's worth 1 million, they have 200% of coverage. That's in our standard policy. What has become popular in British Columbia, in bigger cities where you would know real estate is going up and going up and going up. We can add, if it's asked for, a market value endorsement. I think it costs $20 at most. And what that means is if you're buying a house today for $500,000, if that's possible, in 5 or 10 years, if there's a claim and that market value endorsement has been added, our claims team looks at what is the current market of that value of that property. If it's $2 million, that's how much coverage the homeowner has.
I know when I purchased my title insurance, and I could definitely be wrong, I remember being asked if I wanted title insurance, and there was a big question mark hanging over my head. And I always, I don't know, to me it felt like buying the extended warranty on a car. Instantly, I was like, nope, step away. And the lawyer was good and explained what it was and explained the value, and the price really is what clinched it for me. Plus the fact that we were buying a place they were making no warranties about. But, you know, I don't know that I recall being asked if I wanted to up my insurance policy, because it would be an up, right? In order to.
Yeah, and maybe it's something new FCT has introduced in the last, few years, just because our real estate just seems to go up and up and up, right?
Yes.
So, but still on a standard policy, insureds have double. So,
Yeah.
So here's a
that's
side
great.
question. So say I have title insurance and I purchased it with a different provider. There's more than one provider.
There is.
But I now want to have fair market title insurance. Can I go out and purchase another policy?
That's a good question. If we insured you the first time, we would really want to know why you would want another policy. We would maybe just for a smaller fee bring you up to current value. That seems, we're not always aware. There are two other insurers in the title space in British Columbia. We're not always aware if you're insured with somebody else. So for Denise, or sorry, maybe it was you, Laura, that said, I don't know if I've got it. As soon as somebody from the public reaches out to us to say, I'm an existing homeowner, I'm interested in title insurance, the first thing we do is run you through our system. You may already have a policy that happens and you're just unaware, or you don't recall, or the closing day was emotional, or filled with excitement, and it just might be something that
Or a
you
lot
don't
of
remember.
paperwork.
A lot of paperwork. Yes, I was just going to say that, Laura. Yeah, because the stack of paperwork is formidable.
So we wouldn't want to double insure someone. We would want to first see if you had a policy and then amend and bring it up.
And so if you were with someone that wasn't insured with you and they wanted now, and the other people weren't offering a fair market value policy, or is that something all the providers are now offering? I can't speak for other providers. I'm sorry. So yeah, that's totally fair. It's totally fair. I find that fascinating because I never knew that was an option as well. And I've always been a big fan of title insurance because my dad was a mortgage broker for years and years. And he'd always say, now, remember, when you go to the lawyer, honey, you get the one that protects both you and the lender. It's only a few dollars more, but make sure you get the one that protects you and the lender. Don't be cheap now. So let's skip around in our order of questions a bit. Talk to us kind of about what type of investment title insurance is. What is the typical home buyer looking at? Is it?
Oh, do you mean the premium cost?
Yeah. Is it a few thousand? Is it a few hundred? What?
Yeah.
does it typically cost since it's a one-time fee?
Yeah. So I want to start with existing homeowners.
Yeah.
If this transaction, if we're issuing a policy not at the time of closing, it's usually a little more expensive. So
Okay.
if the property value is under $1 million, I want to say it's, I'm just guessing, you know, $500, maybe more. At the time of closing, it's less because there's usually a lender policy added as well. In most of our transactions, in that case, it's around $200. Condos generally are under $100. It might be somewhere between $50 and $80, but we can quote it, or a lawyer or notary can quote it. And again, it's a one-time premium.
So you bring up condos and, you know, what could title insurance ever cover you with a condo? That is, you know, you don't really have the land, and you know for sure that the condo is in the right spot on the property because they wouldn't have been able to build it otherwise. So can you talk about what the value would be for getting insurance for a condo?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked. We've seen in the last year or two a rise in condo claims. And so in British Columbia, my most expensive claims have come from undisclosed special levies. And purchaser, realtors do everything right. Law firm has done everything right. People move into their condo, and within a few weeks learn that there's been a special levy passed. The most expensive one I had last year was $77,000 for a roof. And second to that was $44,000 for an elevator overhaul. And that affects someone's title. Would they have purchased the property at the amount that they did if they had known? And this is the next question I usually get asked, Denise, is how come the clients didn't know about an AGM had passed a special levy? And mistakes happen. It's the Form F, the Form B. We don't sue strata companies to get back that $77,000. So we had a case where from the time of the accepted offer and the closing date and the actual move-in date, between that period, the AGM had met and passed, and the information just didn't get passed on to anyone. So those are unknown issues that would have affected the purchaser's title.
Well, and that's really fascinating because from a real estate standpoint, typically, Denise and I would put in a clause stating that if any levies were passed between the time of offer and the time of completion, this is the seller's responsibility to pay those and have their lawyer do an adjustment. Because typically, I always say the writing's on the wall. Thank God now that we have depreciation reports, we have future planning. Like condos in BC have a really well kind of written what will happen. Like, so if you actually read through the documents properly provided, assuming that the strata is professionally managed and properly communicating, there is a lot of information at your fingertips. Once again, it can be quite overwhelming, but I can see the case of title insurance being super valid on something that was an unexpected special levy. So like a roof, for example, we have a building downtown Nanaimo right now that's had their AGM, and the documents aren't available to us as homeowners just yet, but the thing is, or future homeowners, but we know that they've made a decision but the strata company could inform us if we specifically asked what the outcome potentially will be, and also that we know that it will be coming. And so because we do so much due diligence when it comes to stratas and we read all the sets of minutes, often somewhere buried in the minutes, we'll have a one-liner saying the roof requires repair. The roof will need XYZ over the next 2 years. Or Strata Council has decided to save up money and get multiple roof quotes. Well, there's no reason to get multiple roof quotes if you don't need a roof. So
I was just going to say my last note on strata is by volume, the topic that we see claims on. I wondered if you might guess what it was, but I won't put you on the spot. It's parking stalls and storage lockers. So documentation says they get a parking stall. When they get to the building, it's a motorcycle stall, or they're told there will be a storage locker, and they meet with the condo strata manager, and the strata manager, this is true, said, oh, there's a waiting list. We'll add your name to it. But it was in the documents, and nobody intentionally is
Oh, I
misleading
see.
anybody, but you can put a price on that. That's
Yeah,
affecting
absolutely.
the title. You know, take a city like, I'm just going to guess Victoria. If I didn't have a parking stall in my condo and I had to pay outside on the street, I might be second guessing buying my condo. So there's a dollar amount attached to it.
Absolutely. And I'd be fascinated to know how they determine it, because in new construction, we'll typically have a dollar amount, and we'll say each parking stall is 10 to 15 to 20,000, depending on the area it's located in, right? No, I find that really fascinating, because once again, improper due diligence, we will often catch errors on documents. And so it's really important. I had no idea title insurance could potentially cover you for that, but I think it's super important that I'm going to actually suggest now that condo buyers talk to their lawyers about purchasing it.
I know, right?
I wasn't even aware that it was something such as
For the
that.
price, yeah, for the price, it's
Yeah. And so
So-
now, just before Denise gets going, you're seeing in new construction something really fascinating happen. The developer or the strata owns all the parking stalls, and they assign a stall, because
Mhm.
right now what's happening is owners are taking the strata or the strata council, the ownership, to human tribunal. Because if they get a parking stall that their vehicle doesn't fit into, or they get a parking stall that's too far away from the elevator, and say they have a mobility issue. So now when we say you're getting a parking stall, the number on the paper might change. It really depends on what the ownership says. Now, if we have any particular needs for this parking stall, e.g. you have a mobility issue, we need to talk to the strata during your subject removal period. We need to document this in writing. It's very important we do so, because we need to find out how these parking stalls are registered. Because years and years ago, parking stalls were registered, attached to the unit via land titles office, as you know. Very different scenario to now, where you get one stall. We'll play magic, pull a number out of a hat. We don't know which stall you're getting, but it's one, so.
And there's often times that I've looked at the Form B, and you would think that the Form B is the Bible for the condo complex, but it's not. There's errors on the Form B all the time.
We see them, and we're
Yeah.
just acknowledging that the purchaser was unaware.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing. It's good to have it, because I was wondering what the purchaser's options are, other than to, go back to their strata council and say, so now where do I park? Or go back to the owner, so, Denise, can I go with the next question? Are you good with
Sure,
that?
go for it.
Shari, what is title fraud, and when does it occur?
So, it makes me sad to talk about title fraud, because it's unfortunately growing. Ontario for us is number one, BC is number two. I can, with absolute confidence, sit here today and tell you that organized crime has never been more organized, that ID, driver's license, passports have never looked more perfect. And I hate to say this to you, but realtors, lenders, and title insurers, like, we're in this together. We're all meeting clients who are pretending to be somebody that they're not. And we're being fooled. We see it every day in underwriting, and the fraudsters have just we're getting better at it, but they have just gotten so good. And I would say to you, a year ago, we had one certified fraud examiner in underwriting, and now we're up to 3. We work every day with law enforcement locally. So what are you seeing and what are we seeing? It's this. Fraudsters refi would be number one in British Columbia. So Denise, I'm just
refinance.
gonna pick you.
Yeah.
You know, you own your home, and I might get beautiful identification with Denise's, you know, name and all her cards. I'll go to a lender and say, you know, looking for a refi on my property. We know the suites that the bigger the amount fraudsters go after, the bigger target. It's more noticeable. So they're looking for $100,000, $200,000, and we see it in underwriting because the deals come to us. Denise might be claiming to put her children through UBC or UVic. She's going to renovate her house. She wants to travel or buy a summer home. All of those sound great. And most of the fraud is occurring, I want to say, in the private lender space, but not completely. Not all private lenders are the same, and not all, maybe this would be your experience. You could tell me, not all private lenders meet the borrowers. It's, you know, it's organized through great mortgage brokers. And yeah, we've got you approved for $200,000. And then you walk into your law firm or your notary office or even your bank, if it's a bank deal, and you present your beautiful ID, you've got a story, everything clears, it looks good, and Shari walks out the door with $200,000. Fraudsters are so good now, they can actually make the first few payments until they disappear with the money. And then Denise gets a call or a letter from the bank and says, you've missed a payment. And our insureds will go, we don't have a loan with you. They'll call, they'll have a meeting and learn somebody has impersonated them and successfully gotten a refi against their property. That is the biggest issue that we've seen. And sorry, I've got two more things to say. We have seen houses being sold outright. So one we had last year was the tenant was involved in the property, and time went by and the tenant was able to duplicate the ID. They had property tax statements. They sold it. So in underwriting, I know realtors and lenders and mortgage brokers, we all have the same fraud flags. We look at, is it a rush deal? Is the property being sold for below market value? Has anybody ever met this client before? Because fraudsters won't go back to a law firm where the real person might be known. They're seeking out notaries and law firms and realtors and mortgage brokers they've never worked with. So nobody collectively on this deal has worked with them before. It's vacant land, it's rented land, it was an Airbnb. Those are all flags for us. Sometimes power of attorneys being used are a flag too, but I'm not bashing the use of power of attorneys. But if it's just the one more thing added on top of this rush deal, then our underwriting is going to sit back. And if we won't insure the lender, the deal will collapse. So we go to work, ask more questions. And that is probably the number one reason people in British Columbia that have no mortgage and they're sitting on an existing property will reach out to us in fear of fraud. And I don't like to sell policies in fear. It's not the number 1 and 2 issue in British Columbia. It's encumbrances and unpermitted work, but it really is out there.
So when I sell a home to someone who is, for example, all cash, or they know they've sold a home and they're downsizing, one of the conversations I'll have with them is say, please talk to your lender about a thing called title insurance. This will protect you against fraud against your title. Why this is important is because, exactly like you described, identity theft, and it's some of the best insurance you can buy because it's a one-time fee. I don't follow up and ask them if they purchased title insurance, but I have that conversation with them. And usually, that being said, most of the lawyers in Vancouver Island that I'm working with, you know, most of them are giving really solid advice. We have a great professional crew on Vancouver Island.
You do.
We really do. And then the other thing is our industry is becoming just like your industry, more and more regulated. So to put any buyers or future homeowners at, say, at kind of peace, is we're highly regulated as an industry. And Denise and I are both trained under FinTract, and our FinTract requirements, which are our ID requirements, ask quite a series of questions. And if we haven't worked with those people before, or that person is unwilling to do what we call a FinTract ID verification, like you said, that's usually a high warning bell. They want to see properties, they want to write an offer, but they won't give IDs. It's a no starter. I'm not interested in having any further liability issues. If you are not who you are and you don't have, you know, like you said, more than one piece of an ID, and you're not willing to complete an ID form and answer those questions, sorry, not interested in doing business with you.
Shari, something you said really struck a chord, and I have a question about that. So you said that if you won't insure the mortgage for the bank, the deal doesn't come together. So at what point, if someone's purchasing a home and they have a mortgage, does the bank get the title insurance people involved in order to make sure that it is insurable?
Yeah, and so we want to insure these deals, both for the lender and the homeowner. If we can't get comfortable with who the person is, and I mean, I'm going to flip the coin a little bit. We have not insured deals, and the deals have collapsed. And lawyers have thanked us, because the last thing they want is to be investigated for being a part of a fraudulent transaction. We're very transparent with our law firms, and they know, because we're asking more questions. We will go to great lengths to prove that somebody is somebody. In fact, if this person got a refinance 5 years ago, we will go back. Who was that lawyer? Did they take their ID at the time? What can we do to ensure this? But if we present to the lender and say, we're not comfortable with this deal and providing a title insurance policy for you, Mr. or Mrs. Lender, usually the lenders go, then we're not interested either, because they don't want to suffer a
But at what
loss.
point are the lenders coming to you for the insurance? Is it while they're approving the mortgage?
No,
It's at
no,
the
it's
end?
very at the end. It's unfortunate. And I want to say, because I'm speaking quite generally, Denise,
Mhm.
the RBCs, the TDs, the Van Cities, the Island, savings, most of their clients that they are approving for mortgages have a savings account. They know them. There's some history there. Most of the fraud occurs with brand new people. So this lender has no history with them. If there's history, we get more confident.
Okay.
But they're so yeah, it's the lawyer or the notary is ordering the policies, underwriting is looking at it, we're trying to make it work. Again, in the private lender space, and I know this from speaking to private lenders, and they're good lenders. They've never met the people. They just got a copy of the ID from a mortgage broker and they felt comfortable, and, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. There's only so much you can do, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and we
Yeah.
do have really strict rules regarding identification. And so I think that's important because, like the lawyers need to have those IDs. That's why people, when you're registering a mortgage, need to meet with a lawyer in person. They need to bring 2 pieces of valid ID in person. There's a photo ID, like we are regulated for a reason, and it's to protect everybody, right?
Everybody.
Yeah, and it's not
But
discriminating or anything like that. It's to protect homeowners, home buyers, home sellers. Because if you're selling a home and then you're buying another home and title insurance occurs on one of the properties in somewhere in that chain, whoo, okay, you gotta figure out, who's responsible for the costs incurred. And
yes.
so, yeah, it's it's really good to know that your industry is taking extra precautions, because I just think of, you've paid off a mortgage. And so like, I'm thrilled to know that you can add it on after. So like,
Mhm.
for example, you bought a home 30 years ago, you didn't need it, or you didn't think you needed it, or it wasn't offered to you by whomever. And you paid off you're about to pay off your house, and you go to your bank, and your bank's like, hey, have you ever thought about getting some title insurance? How great is that to have your professional advisor seek out and protect, offer you solutions for protection of most likely your largest asset.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fraud coverage is in both the lender policy and the homeowner policy.
Yeah.
So if fraud occurs, a title insurer will repay them for their losses.
Well, when we do our legal update courses, there's a whole section, I think, just recently on title fraud. And it's fascinating to see the examples, but I wasn't shocked by you saying refinances.
Yes.
I mean, it's something that sometimes people think, oh, I can just refinance this and no one will notice, or I can just register this small loan against it. So I can see where, like you said, I found that fascinating that they'll pay the first few payments. It'll create the pattern, and then all of a sudden you'll get that letter, right? Like,
Yeah.
hey, and I mean, for some reason, that's why having relationships with your professional service providers is so important, So I know when I had fraud on one of my credit cards, I had to bring in like 3 pieces of ID, and fraud department wanted me to verify. And finally the bank manager's like, yeah, that's Laura. It's still Laura. I know Laura really well. She banks here frequently. And so it was like the bank, but luckily I have good relationships with the bank, and the bank's like, yep, still Laura. Yep, signing off. And the fraud person's like, so you're 100% confident that is said client? Yes, I'm 100% confident. So like you said, they go to people where the pasts are less known, right?
Right.
Are you seeing like fraud on any other examples? Like, so like, say you're a homeowner about to pay off a mortgage, or you've inherited a property. What are things that people should be careful with? Because we know for a fact that our generation is going to be inheriting more and more properties, and many of them are paid off because they cost less back in the day, right?
Yeah. A refi for sure, I would say, is our biggest space in British Columbia. We've seen, I'm thinking of a claim where a son had the same name as his father, used the POA to outright sell a home, without other family members being aware. Yeah, on an outright purchase, it's a little more challenging, but we see it. Again, it's better if the owners, we had a claim, here's a tip for everybody. Somebody was taking an extended 6-week European vacation, and they posted about it on social media that they were going and their trip, and fraudsters became aware that their property was vacant, and it wasn't hard to find it and sell it while they were away. And that was one of our insureds, and they came home to no property. And what makes me sad about that, I think about my house, because I'm just human. Where are my pictures? Where are my kids' things? But somebody is actually living in your house. Now, we don't honestly get hundreds of those in British Columbia. It's more in the refi space, but it happens.
Yeah.
Don't share so much maybe on social media when
our lives shouldn't be so transparent, right?
Yeah.
I'm just going to ask if anybody who's attended has any questions or wants to step in. I mean, we could go all night, but we'll see if anybody here. Jessica or James, do you have any questions you would like to ask Shari before we wrap up?
I don't have any questions, but I'm a new agent, so this is super helpful for me. Thank you.
Good luck to you, Jessica.
Thank you.
Well, I definitely learned a few things, Shari, and I'm thrilled that we had the opportunity to spend the last hour with you. We appreciate your valuable knowledge and time, and we'll definitely be recommending that my clients reach out to FCT And
I have a
what
question
options work best
if
for
there's
them.
time.
Oh, always, Crystal.
yeah.
Sorry.
I would love to learn more about liens because I don't think we talk too much about liens or maybe even unpaid property taxes or anything, unpaid bills. Is that something that's covered with title
Yeah,
insurance?
yes, and vacant tax, there's processes in cities in British Columbia, that foreign buyers tax. Again, without making a claims decision, Crystal, for the purchaser, if it's unknown and they get a bill at tax time or something comes in the mail, there's generally coverage under a title insurance policy. And it's not that lawyers or notaries or realtors haven't done their job. It's generally a mistake has happened or the information didn't come in time. If it's unknown and our purchaser, our insured, is out of pocket for that tax event, then generally, yes, there is coverage under a title insurance policy.
That's great. And I do think it's important when we are dealing with estates. One of the things is that sometimes the estate won't understand what BC speculation tax is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's registered recently on a property I'm dealing with. And I went back to the estate executor, the executrix, and said, you need to call BC speculation tax and provide them a copy of the will, provide them a copy of the death certificate, and tell them what the scenario is, that, you know, you're in the process of, you know, proceeding to sell the home and that you're not speculating.
Mhm.
And when you read the exemptions, it's really important, but keeping a close eye, pulling current titles, you know, not assuming that the title from 6 months ago is accurate. Like we have regulations with EXP Realty and within all of Vancouver Island's real estate board that, you know, current titles are a necessity. So as the industry becomes more and more professional, more and more regulated for factual information, that like rules that need to be in place, hopefully we can start continuing to mitigate some of these issues, right? And
I love it how we all work together, like realtors, mortgage brokers, legal professionals, because we all have the purchaser, the borrower, are insured at heart, that their best interests are covered.
well, and I can see how liens would be relevant because, say, for example, work was done just before and then the purchase closes and they have such a period of time to register a lien against the property, right? And then all of a sudden this work gets unpaid, you know? So I can totally see how it would be relevant. So it's a great question Crystal had, because I mean, I can see how this is relevant. And I mean, or somebody registers something and then it doesn't get, you know, like it's that has that period. It has that 2-week period or whatever, or 30 days. So yeah, and same thing with stratas. I learned some great information
Isn't that
tonight.
fascinating? I'm going to tell every strata owner to make sure they buy title insurance. That's brilliant. You can only do so much when you're going through documents, and you always hope that you haven't missed anything, right? Or that the strata isn't having what they call hallway meetings and deciding things without putting it in the minutes. It's been very, very informative, Shari, and I want to thank you again. Laura and I want to thank you for taking the time out. Yeah, I have learned a lot. This is fantastic. And thanks to everybody who attended. And next month, I just want to say that on October 2nd at 6 p.m., we're going to be having a session on window coverings. So smart, stylish, functional, whatever, we're going to be covering it all. So window coverings are not just a curtain. They're a lot more than that. So we're going to be talking with some people next month about the ins and outs of windows.
I have a question.
Oh,
go ahead,
yes,
Dave.
James, go ahead.
Very, very informative. I've learned a lot. Are there any agencies in Canada that you can contact to find out if there's anything happening with your title?
BC Online, yes.
Yeah, you can pull your own title, James.
Oh,
Yeah,
you
so
can.
there's a company called Land Titles. So it
Okay.
stands for LTSA or Land Titles BC.
All right.
James, you could also ask your trusted realtor, Denise, and we do have a cost associated with it. So from time to time, I'll have clients pay I think it's about $13 to $15 and ask for an updated title search.
Okay,
So
so
honestly-
basically that would give you the information as to whether there's some activity in a credit situation looking for
No.
money? No?
No, you would want to go on to, what is it, Equifax, and what's the other one? The credit people.
Credit Karma.
You can set up an alert for your credit report
Okay.
that if there's anybody trying to get credit, it
Yeah.
will alert you. And that stops it right at the very beginning, James. When you pull your
Okay.
title, it's already happened. It's been registered on title.
Oh, all right.
So-
So
You
if,
can also talk to your professional service providers at your bank or your
Yeah.
lender. They'll be able to give you all of these resources. But yes, there are some simple things to put in place to prevent credit fraud from occurring.
Yes, and they're free.
fantastic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they are free. So I
Okay.
talked to your bank, James, and they'll be able to point you in the right direction. I can't quite recall the names of the companies, but
Well, I think
do know
Equifax is one.
Equifax is one, but there's
Yeah.
another one, and
Yeah.
I'm not sure if Equifax allows you to put an alert on, but just give your bank manager or someone that you know at the bank a call, and they'll be able to point you in that direction. But
They're
that's
very-
definitely what you should set up.
They really
Well-
want to do fraud prevention because
Yeah.
they deal a lot with fraud. So anything that they can do to teach you about fraud prevention, it's definitely high on their priorities.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the time, and maybe I will contact my realtor, Denise. And
I think she's not available right now.
she's not. Well, we'll have to do this before 2027 then.
There you
Yes,
go. Sounds like a
Okay.
good plan. Yeah.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much. Had enjoyed it.
good.
Bye for now.
Thanks for
Thank
coming,
you
James.
all. Thank you for having me, Denise and Laura and Jessica and Crystal. It was fun.
Thank
Amazing.
you. Have a wonderful evening, everyone.
You too. Bye-bye for now.
Bye.